What's up, Graham? It's Guys here, and you better buckle up because everything is going to sh. Okay, now, in all seriousness, despite a falling US dollar, skyrocketing gold prices, and a looming government shutdown, as of a few hours ago, the Federal Reserve decided not to lower interest rates for the foreseeable future. However, starting May of 2026, everything is going to completely reset. After all, it's apparent that the market's no longer reacting to today's Federal Reserve. It's reacting to who will be in charge throughout the second half of the year, and this has the potential to reshape the way we think about stocks, cryptocurrency, real estate, and even the value of our money. That's why we absolutely need to talk about what just happened, what this means for you, and how you could use this information to come out ahead. Because the reality is, confidence in the dollar and US stability is beginning to crack, and if it breaks, you are going to be the one that pays for it first. Although before we start, if you appreciate breaking news videos like this, it would mean the world to me if you hit the like button or subscribed if you haven't done that already. That's all I ask. It helps out tremendously, and as a thank you for doing that, here's a picture of a zebra. So thanks so much, and also big thank you to Policy Genius for sponsoring this video, but more on that later. Alright, so in terms of where to start, let's begin with lowering interest rates. On the surface, it's really no surprise that Trump has been pushing for lower interest rates the moment he came into office, and really throughout the entire time, his biggest hurdle has been none other than Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve. Now, even though Jerome Powell doesn't unilaterally set interest rates himself, he does oversee a committee of 12 people who decide together, and this is where Trump has decided to push. In fact, Trump recently argued that rates should be lowered all the way down to 1%, which would spark a brand new wave of spending, borrowing, and growth. Although Jerome Powell doesn't agree, and that's caused a lot of tension. So much so that Trump has even floated the idea of getting Jerome Powell fired. As of last week, Jerome Powell said that the DOJ served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas and threatened a criminal indictment tied to the multi-year renovation of a historic office building, which Jerome Powell claims is a politically motivated attack designed to pressure them into lowering interest rates more than they would otherwise. This also coincides with the firing of Lisa Cook, who Trump removed for alleged mortgage fraud. This is why it's a lot more than just Trump versus Powell drama. Not to mention, when a standing president pushes on the Federal Reserve to bend at his will, it creates the illusion that the Federal Reserve is no longer independent, and long-term, it damages the central bank's credibility around the world, leading to a potential sell-off of US dollars. Either way, Jerome Powell's current term comes to an end in May of 2026, and after that, we're likely going to see some pretty significant changes across everything, including first, the stock market. As of now, there's a lot of skepticism about where the market's currently headed. I mean, it's no surprise. Over the last 5 years, the market has done incredibly well. But going forward, some analysts are getting a lot more cautious. For example, Bank of America predicts that the S&P 500 is going to reach 7,100 by the end of 2026, implying just a 3.7% increase from today, even though Deutsche Bank is still predicting a nearly 17% gain. However, it is worth mentioning that so far, not a single analyst has predicted that the market would end the year negative. And the last time this happened? 2008, before the market fell 40%, and in 2001, before the S&P 500 fell another 13%. Anyway, now that the S&P 500 is on track for its 4th straight year of gains, CNN points out that there's a very clear bull case and bear case scenario that everyone needs to be made aware of. So let's first start with why the market could keep going higher. 1. AI is bringing a lot of growth. Or as JP Morgan says, the United States is driven by a resilient economy and an AI-driven supercycle that is fueling record capex and rapid earnings expansion. Or in other words, prices just keep rising because people keep spending, partially due to, second, the expectation of lower interest rates. Like I mentioned earlier, it's largely accepted that interest rates are coming down, mostly because inflation seems to be under control. And even if it's not, that doesn't matter anyway, because Trump's new chair of the Federal Reserve is likely lowering rates regardless, sparking a great melt-up of asset prices, especially because, third, wealthy consumers keep spending money. Even though it's considered a K-shaped economy where the rich just keep getting richer, analysts are not worried until the top stops spending. And as of now, they're just getting started, with GDP rising 4.4%. However, in terms of the flip side of this, here's why the market could go down. Right now, there's a lot of tension between Europe and the US dollar. Tariff threats get thrown around on a seemingly daily basis, and eventually, if one of them sticks, the markets could see a rather abrupt sell-off, at least temporary. Now, 2, consumer spending is largely driven by wealthy households whose investments have risen in value. The rest of the population is barely scraping by. leading to third, the US dollar is falling because flat out we are printing a lot more money than what's sustainable. And when you combine that with lofty AI valuations and trade agreements, things might not be as great as some people expect, especially once the market starts trading 24/7, where any new event gets instantly priced in. That's why, to get a grasp on what's most likely going to happen next, we have to talk about what the Federal Reserve just said, why this is causing precious metals to skyrocket in price, and then what you could do to make the most of the situation, because this could be your last chance before everything goes absolutely crazy. Although before we go into that, I have to say that with everything going on, I find it funny how much time people spend optimizing their investments, credit card, and expenses, yet they do not do the same for what they're paying for insurance. Like as of now, half of all Americans don't even have life insurance, and of those that do, 42% say they need more than what they currently have. I just think most people don't do this because they're either intimidated by the process or they assume the price is the price, when in reality, shopping around would make a massive difference. And that is where our sponsor, Policy Genius, is there to help. They make it easier than ever to find a policy that fits your specific needs. And they could do this by allowing you to compare life insurance quotes from America's top insurers in one place with just a few clicks to find your lowest price. In fact, with Policy Genius, real users have gotten 20-year, $2 million life insurance policies for just $53 a month, with thousands of 5-star reviews on both Google and Trustpilot. On top of that, since life insurance is not a one-size-fits-all product, their team of licensed award-winning agents will walk you through the entire process step by step, handle all the paperwork, answer any questions you might have, and help you make decisions with confidence. Plus, since they work for you and not the insurance company, they don't have any incentive to recommend one insurer over the other. So don't put this off another year. Give your family the gift of security today with Policy Genius. Just head to policygenius.com/Graham or click the link down below in the description to get your free life insurance quotes from top companies and see how much you could save. Again, the link is down below to get started. Thank you so much, and now let's get back to the video. Alright, now in terms of what the Federal Reserve just said, there's one more metric that's worth talking about, and that would be home prices. In a somewhat surprising turn of events, last week, home sales declined 9.3% in the month of December, having dropped in all 4 regions across the United States. In fact, these numbers were so bad that the National Association of Realtors made a statement that they'll be watching the data in the coming months to determine whether the soft contract signings were a one-month aberration or the start of an underlying trend. However, they did provide a counter-argument to this, saying that the decline in pending home sales could be a result of dampened consumer enthusiasm about buying a home when there are so few options listed for sale. Although, I gotta say, as someone who's been working in real estate since 2008, I don't think that reasoning makes a lot of sense. Yes, inventory is down slightly, and yes, December is usually a slow month for housing, but in my experience, I just tend to think it's 2 scenarios at play. 1, anyone who is eager to buy a house has already bought a house. And 2, a lot of people waiting on the sidelines are doing so because they want mortgage rates to fall because sellers aren't budging on their price. This pretty much results in a stalemate. Sellers don't want to reduce their price because they think once mortgage rates fall, a buyer will pay that price. And buyers don't want to buy the house because they want to wait for mortgage rates to fall. That's it. Now, in terms of those rates falling, Trump recently expressed interest in injecting $200 billion worth of capital into the mortgage markets in an effort to lower payments and lower interest rates. And initially, this did have a somewhat meaningful effect. Like just on the news alone, mortgage rates fell about 1/4 to 0.5% on a 30-year fixed. However, it is important to remember that even though $200 billion seems like a lot of money, the mortgage market is largely set by the 10-year Treasury yield, which is determined by market supply and demand. And $200 billion is really just a blip on the radar until eventually home prices just balance out what you'd be able to buy anyway. On top of that, the Realtor.com chief economist said that the resulting boost to buyer demand could put upward pressure on home prices, offsetting some of the intended affordability relief. That's why, from my perspective, a $200 billion injection of capital sounds nice, until you realize the entire mortgage market is worth $11 trillion, and the Fed still holds $2 trillion worth of that on their balance sheet. This means the impact of $200 billion has mostly already been priced in, unless Trump wants to make it a recurring payment, in which case they're basically just bailing out the housing market. Now, as far as the long-term impact this is going to have on housing prices, Peter Schiff had some pretty choice words to say, tweeting that Trump basically admitted that there's a housing bubble in the US. He also admitted his main policy goal is to prevent it from popping. But once you recognize a bubble, the worst thing you could do is try to sustain it. The sooner it bursts, the less damage it will ultimately cause. We're also seeing something similar with Trump's executive order to block Wall Street from buying single-family homes. Sounds nice on paper, but when Wall Street only owns about 1% of the housing supply, it's realistically going to have little to no impact for the average person. That's why objectively, any boost to housing affordability is likely going to be minor or temporary at best, unless of course we see a massive housing market bailout, which at this point, I'm going to be honest, nothing surprises me anymore. Even going so far to see more tax breaks for homeowners to offset your taxes. No, seriously. Theoretically, there are dozens of things that Trump would be able to do to cause the housing market to continue to grow at a record pace, but whether or not that's going to happen is just yet to be seen. Anyway, beyond that, in terms of the other numbers, most metrics so far are relatively the same. Homes listed are sitting for a median of 39 days in the market, 29% are sold to first-time buyers, 28% are all cash transactions, and 18% were sold to investors, which is pretty much unchanged from a year ago. That's why I think we're likely going to see a lot more of the same throughout 2026, unless, of course, mortgage rates come down dramatically or they pass some rather large tax incentives. So in terms of what Jerome Powell just said about this and how this impacts you, here's what you came for. Like I mentioned earlier, as of a few hours ago, the Federal Reserve decided not to lower interest rates at least through the end of March. Although once Jerome Powell's term is up in May, that's where things are going to get very interesting. For example, Trump recently said that he wants a Fed chairman like Alan Greenspan in the 1990s. For those unaware, Alan Greenspan was the person who coined the term irrational exuberance in late 1996 about the stock market. Then he left rates unchanged while the markets went higher and higher and higher until eventually it popped. He finally lowered rates, and that's what subsequently led to the lost decade through 2012. This suggests that we could see a stock market that keeps going higher and higher and higher until eventually at some point in the future it pops, at which point we'll just let the future people deal with it. Beyond that, though, in terms of what Jerome Powell said about today, he reiterated that they will remain data dependent, take every meeting as it comes depending on the information they get, and make sure they do everything possible to maintain maximum employment, especially because job growth is somewhat beginning to soften. There was also mention about a DOJ criminal investigation, which Jerome Powell again believes is just a politically motivated attack, but we'll have to wait and see just what happens. That's why I have a feeling these next few months are probably going to be more of the same until Jerome Powell leaves in May, at which point the entire market could suddenly flip. So in terms of what I think and what this means for you, here's what you gotta know. As of now, it's apparent that there is a flight to safety towards precious metals, and objectively, this is the most expensive stock market ever in history. Of course, some people will say, well, this time is different. You're not taking into account the AI revolution, and we're just going to keep printing more money. But it is worth keeping in mind that it's not a bad idea to diversify. It's not a bad idea to keep a little cash on the sidelines, and you shouldn't go all in on one thing because you think that investing is always easy. Like, remember how I mentioned Alan Greenspan earlier? Well, in December of 1996, he warned about irrational exuberance, telling investors that maybe they're getting a little ahead of themselves. Maybe valuations are getting out of control. Maybe people should be careful. But guess what? The market didn't care. It kept moving higher and higher and higher. In fact, this carried on for years. The market went 50 to 100% higher than when he first coined that phrase, until the market crashed in 2001. This means if you were an investor back then and you sold the moment he issued that warning, you didn't protect yourself. You just missed out on one of the strongest late-stage melt-ups in history. And that's the danger with markets like this. Stocks don't crash because they get expensive. They crash when something breaks. This is why, theoretically, we could be in the exact same situation today, where valuations are stretched, people are getting ahead of themselves, the market's moving indefinitely higher consistently. But guess what? That doesn't mean the market can't move even higher and higher and higher for a very long time. So what do you do with this information, you might ask? Well, honestly, the answer is pretty boring. If rates stay higher for longer, cash earns more, debt becomes more expensive, housing stays sluggish, and the market remains volatile. But if rates drop aggressively in 2026, then the stock market could keep going higher. Precious metals and crypto could go crazy. housing could rebound, and we could see another late-stage melt-up. I just think regardless of which one happens, the biggest risk isn't missing out on more gains. It's being overexposed to a market that's held together by expectations, politics, and overconfidence. The thing is, any one of those could change practically overnight, and when that happens, you could lose months or even years worth of gains in a matter of days or weeks. That's why if you want to get ahead of whatever might happen, just do me a favor, please. Just make sure you diversify. Pay down high interest rate debt, keep a little cash on the sidelines as an emergency fund, and make sure you're not forced to sell at the worst possible time in the event the market drops. The truth is, you don't need to accurately predict the top or the bottom to win long term. All you need to do is make sure you don't panic sell when everything drops. And guess what? If everything keeps going up higher from here, great, we all win. But if something happens and the market falls 20 to 30%, well, guess what? You're able to buy in cheaper, you're able to weather the course, and you're able to hit the like button or subscribe if you haven't done that already. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to leave a comment down below. I will do my best to read and reply to as many of you as I can. Thanks again, and until next time.